actually lower themselves into the ocean so that it's easier for these hovercraft to get on and off.
Drop the thief off into the hands of the law.
Hey, when you look at me, as you look at me now, I am community policing. All this stuff.
Who will be impacted in one way or another as a result of this flow, and 40,000 who live in this district.
He said that she hadn't been getting on well with his father, but he said they talked about it.
Navy Rear Admiral Frank Pond.
And I don't want to be a street legend, because a street legend, if you make it to 25, you're either going to be dead or in jail.
He's just saying he'll go around the law once it's too late for Americans to hold his party.
Surprise, surprise. The guy.
Operational efficiency point of view, they have their full life.
A suicide note and bottles of carbolic acid nearby. The inquest heard that Hina, a school...
To go forward until after the midterm elections. President Obama evidently made this decision. Policy, it's Washington politics at its worst.
In Yarma today concluded that Hina Solanki had taken her own life and that of her daughters.
Also being watched, the USNS Montford Point.
Things she didn't talk to him about.
At one point, the driver told the thief, "I'm badder than you." And by the 8th whack, the thief was crying.
The situation inside the town remains finely balanced.
Turns out the boy managed to leave his apartment while his dad was still asleep.
Turkish Kurds celebrated, but they're being kept out of the fight by
the biggest police department in the world. I have accolades. I've commanded some of the most violent priests.
With the lava, and that happened about 3 hours ago.
And to meet people where they are at their level so that they can hear.
It's very important. I mean, look at what's happening now.
She did, and the bus driver ended up sitting down on the ground to comfort her.
At houses.
He said there was no indications she was so...
And there has been some very strong reactions across the political spectrum today.
The bus driver is the real MVP.
If the scholars write about going into minority communities and policing, I am that. You can't tell me.
I will give you a second chance if you're going into the military.
But that's part of the commitment that was made by the officials here in this community.
I want to read to you a comment from Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell.
As the Norah Jones song Sunrise played.
Takes great skill.
The Montford Point is basically a highway interchange and a parking lot at sea.
A lab technician had easily been able to get hold of them.
Recording a verdict of unlawful killing for both of the girls. He said it was a truly tragic.
It's never easy.
Hina, her husband Kalpesh, and their daughters lived with his parents.
That President Obama is cementing his legacy as deporter-in-chief. So a lot of... Well, Frederica, what we're hearing is that the White House decided...
Heard from one of Hina's friends who said she'd been upset over tensions with her in-laws. And
I expect the recommendations before the end of the summer.
They're locking you up. Now, we could do this two different ways. Either you could come with us, or we could bring help here. And then when help comes...
Something he said on June 30th in the Rose Garden. Take a listen.
Things. When you look at them, not the Monday morning quarterback, the cops, but if I'm there, that's a whole different...
The healthcare worker will come to their house twice a day. You will have limited the number of people they will have been in contact with.
Spreading. There are other neighborhoods, other communities that are in that projected path as well, and you're looking at the possible number of residents here of 8,000.
Like the one in Buffalo, New York, who saw a woman on a bridge contemplating suicide, stopped the bus. He acts like he was joking, but tries to grab it again. The driver slams the door.
And I intend to adopt those recommendations without further delay.
It's never easy coming to Arcadia's rescue or anywhere else that needs the Navy and Marines.
He's a refugee from the besieged town. We came to welcome them with gratitude, he says. But we
once spoke of wanting to take the children away to India, but she said,
however, is on the scene. He's standing with officials at a safe distance back.
Violence too. Police firing tear gas and live rounds to disperse
who could find themselves being cut off as
self and our children. The inquest also had 4-year-old Prisha, bright and happy. Her husband Kalpesh said they'd lived a nice life together as a family, but he says he now knows they were obviously
from a safe distance. There will not be any firefighting action taken on any structures that come in immediate contact with the lava flow, and that's
because that's better than the alternative.
Work. From where we're standing now, we can actually see the smoke.
If Congress will not do their job, at least we can do ours.
To be the best will always be all about you.
Excellence in flight, Korean Air.
On the plane ride home last night. I want to play for you, though.
Right. This is what you are doing wrong, and oh, by the way, this is how you can do it better.
Trapping his hand. An eye on the two guys at the end of the line.
Important to talk about it when you went on the podcast or on the radio show. Is that why it's important for you to talk about it?
To do a bit of gliding now. Yeah. How's the weather looking today?
To allow, again, residents, home and property owners that opportunity for closure.
That until after the midterm elections, however, the White House is stressing.
And from a safety point of view, the preferred option is to ask them to stay at home.
We had to go into a minority community and police, so it was very simple for me to go into minority community.
Greater speed, greater efficiency, and greater effectiveness.
Fumes. When police finally were able to get inside, they found the bodies on a bed.
Commenters on the Reddit page Justice Porn.
The Montford Point is still in trials. If it passes, the Navy could purchase 2 more.
Of course, it's burning upwards of 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. There's essentially nothing that they can do. No amount of water will stop it.
Earlier, chaotic scenes as the Peshmerga crossed. Still can't believe it. At Kobane, another huge explosion, possibly an airstrike close to the crossing.
By the end of the year, just after the midterms, well, as you can imagine,
tries to grab the front row passenger's purse. The 22-year-old would-be purse snatcher was cuffed rather than coddled.
The most violent housing developments, or what people call projects in northern Brooklyn. I was handpicked to run the second most violent precinct in the city.
He got out, carefully approached her, put his arms around her.
So I made that decision to try to separate myself from running around in the streets and doing things that I regret. I asked you, Don.
It was a shed, not a home. We understand that the property owner...
Rear Admiral Pons likes it so far.
We have tools out there to make my job effective.
Desperately unhappy. I don't understand why she'd do this to her.
The thief tried to talk his way out of the beating by saying he was just playing a joke on his Aunt Maria. He came to a stop, opened the door for passengers. Another driver near Portland, Oregon, pulled over when he saw a barefoot toddler in a diaper.
When you're a teenager?
Yeah, there are a whole lot of things I think that many people regret.
Right, so I regret, but let's talk about the impeccable life that I have lived for the past 21 years.
Accountable in the November elections. This is clearly not decision-making designed around the best. This was not a good idea. It's all about you. Now, pro-immigration reform groups are also upset, saying
one of them is going to get what Nora was singing about.
He has decided to delay.
The driver drove the bus to the police.
At the heart of our world.
That he will make some sort of executive action.
A new massive mobile landing platform.
You have to have someone to come in and tell you you are doing it right.
Is you. It's why our commitment.
He says what's so cynical about today's immigration announcement
says they're also being watched.
Is that the president isn't saying he'll follow the law.
The bus driver whacked him with a bat over and over.
Trucks drive off a transport ship onto the Montford Point.
And this concept of sea basing coming from the sea.
Called the video insanely satisfying.
And then onto hovercraft. Those hovercraft back out of parking spaces on the ship.
This is the story of a Chilean bus driver who ended up at
and head to shore. And here's the beauty of these ships.
Bat in his butt.
You know what's going to happen. It's no secret when you get a lot of cops around, the testosterone builds up, and it...
From the first structure that has ignited after it came in contact.
Communities and police, and that's one reason why I was handpicked to run.
I'm pretty sure he was batting 1,000 there.
Weeks of airstrikes have not driven so-called Islamic State fighters out. It's thought that some members of the Free Syrian Army have already crossed into Kobane.
Came from
because
that,
I came from
you know that. Is that why you think it's important?
Police left the bus. It went on its way. At the wheel, a driver who didn't bat. Okay, he wasn't the usual hero bus driver.
As the day wore on, closer to Kobane, Kurds waited anxiously for the Peshmerga to arrive. Mohammed Zaidan
and daughters at their Ruislip home in April last year. Ambulance teams trying to reach them were overcome by chemical.
The scenario, my question to Eric Garner probably would have been, listen,
And we're planning to move out. They'd even been looking.
Ma'am, are you okay?
I knew it was only two ways you could be. You're either going to be a hero or a street legend.
Now, he wasn't in court today, but in a statement.
I said, do you want to come on this side of the guardrail?
Down, whatever the cost. Paul Adams, BBC News.
Committing resources to that, they're going to make sure that their resources are instead spent trying to contain it and prevent it from spreading.
Wandering along the street, the driver got out and brought the 2-year-old back.
Well, what turned things around for me was my son was born December 14th.
And as governor of New York, my #1 job is to protect the people of New York.
As a New York City police officer, rose to the top.
And then you did. What turned things around? Was it that decision to do that?
It cuts through major infrastructure.
Do you regret any things when you was young? Eric Garner case, the Brown case in Ferguson. You know, I've been on many TV shows speaking about those. 1987 and 86, actually, and that turned my life around.
It was Kalpesh who discovered the bodies of his wife.
In the city of New York. By the way, I'm the first African-American police commander.
Point where the Peshmerga will enter.
And this does that from an operation.
With the Turkish government.
Foreigner Chinyere.
I'll take that criticism.
Coming from where you came from.
The transition was very easy for me.
Whoever's normally there, it's not that they're stopping their life.
Crowds of angry young men.
But if they become symptomatic.
The 67th precinct, since the inception of the NYPD.
The transition to get there could not have been easy.
Into Turkey. These Kurds already have their hands full defending their own territory in Iraq. Now they're off
They can have their family
to face the same enemy in Kobani. But IS seems determined to take the town.
So rather than putting any of their personnel in danger or...
So you've done all your checks, Matthew, and you're ready?
Their own government. And so, not surprisingly, there was some voter.
People, some of the most beautiful acts of just force of nature and to grieve so long as they can view what's happening.
News, West London Coroner's Court.